Let's talk about what's going on with January 6th and your case. We have the story from Real Clear Investigations. It's been covered quite a bit over the past few months. This one is Investigative Issues. Independent journalist receives January 6th grand jury subpoena. Steve Baker says he believes actors in the Department of Justice seek to silence him. This is back in August. Since then, you've received notice that they actually are intending to criminally charge you. And you are a journalist. You work for the Blaze, or you're a contributor?
No, I am now a full-time investigative journalist for the Blaze. I officially shut down my bands and my operations musically, and I am. So
you were acting as a journalist on January 6th.
Correct.
You are friends with many prominent journalists, notably Richie McGinnis.
Yes.
Who was, what did he say to you? That it would be insane if they went after you for working journalism on January 6th, but now they're coming after you. So what's happening?
Right. Well, they actually made the first threat against me all the way back in November of 21. I did my FBI interview in July of 21, so 6 months after January 6th. And then, or actually, no, that was when they first contacted my attorney. And then we did the interview in October of 21. On November 17th of 21, my attorney got an email from a assistant U.S. attorney out of Philadelphia who said, your client, that would be me, is going to be charged within the week. And that within the week
that was in 2021?
Yes, that would have been that would have been Thanksgiving week of 21 that they originally threatened me with charges. We went on a media and a press offensive instantly. Press release, started doing podcasts and TV and radio interviews and things of that nature. And so that, among other things, we think they backed off. They were like, this guy's too big of a pain in the butt for us to deal with, so they just moved me to the bottom of her pile, the assistant U.S. attorney. And so we didn't hear from them for 20 months. They went away. Now, for 20 months, though, I kept waiting for those red dots in my bedroom window every morning at 6 o'clock. People think I'm joking when I say this. I don't have to set an alarm anymore. 6 o'clock every morning, I wake up and I look for the red dots in my window.
What do you mean red dots?
The SWAT raid.
Lasers being weapons pointed at you.
Yeah. Of course, that's not, they don't actually use red dots anymore. It's
because it would be at 2 in the morning. That's why I understand.
Yeah. But it's what I expect, or what I'm fearful of, and I've had that burden in my gut for that long. And so 20 months went by, and then in August, as you can see from that the date on that article right there by Joe Hanneman, that in August, I got another call from my attorney. He said, okay, now we have a grand jury subpoena for you. And now we're subpoenaing your work from January 6th. So they wanted my videos, which was completely unnecessary, because we not only offered that to them during my FBI interview, free of charge, or so to speak, with as a complimentary service to the FBI, but more importantly, it was part of the cooperation. And then secondarily, we offered it to them yet again to the Department of Justice through exchange with my attorney. There was nothing to hide there. It didn't matter. I don't think I was gonna cause anybody that was there on January 6th any harm, because they were already on 1,000 other videos anyway. So it really wasn't going to hurt anybody if I gave them my videos. So that was my thinking anyway at the time. So we get a grand jury subpoena. The problem with a grand jury subpoena is that grand juries are not seated for misdemeanor charges, only for felonies. It's like, okay, crap. What are they looking at? What are they going to try to do now? What have they been scheming and concocting for 20 months while they've been silent? So we complied. I gave them a flash drive. I actually confronted my FBI agent in the parking lot at his field office with my attorney standing beside me, and I grilled him for about 15 minutes about what they were doing for 20 months. What's going on? I don't know. I said, no, that's BS. You do know, because you're the one that actually has to write the statement of facts based upon which the Department of Justice will then file charges against me. So it's going to be your recommendations, and he wouldn't tell me. And so another 5 months goes by. I'm actually sitting in Thomas Massey's office in D.C., the Rayburn building, and I get another text from my attorney, and it's like, because when your attorney calls you, it's never good. And so I step out into the hallway, and he says, okay, I guess this is the big day. This was on Thursday, December 14th, and he said they are asking you to self-surrender in Raleigh, North Carolina, on Tuesday. So this has been the Tuesday before Christmas week of this past year. So I took my big breath. I walked outside, And then I tweeted out that it's happening. And within 24 hours, I had 4.5 million views of that tweet. And then the Blaze went into high gear. And there were other media appearances as well over the next 24 hours. Within 30 hours, by 5 o'clock, close of business on Friday, the 15th of December, my attorney gets another call from the FBI agent. And he says, okay, we're going to postpone your self-surrender until after Christmas.
Wow.
All right. So my lead attorney, because I have 6 attorneys on this case now. And so my lead attorney then, he takes over. So he contacts the new assistant U.S. attorney, because now they've assigned me to somebody else during that 30-hour period. They took it away from assistant U.S. attorney Anita Eve out of Philadelphia, and they assigned it to a guy by the name of Adam Dreyer out of D.C. So got a new guy, young gun on the case, and I guess that's the kill shot. The guy, he's the specialist, right? So the week between Christmas and January 1st, my lead attorney got on the phone with him. So, okay, what's going on here? Okay, well, right now, what he says is that they're going to delay the self-surrender till sometime mid-January, and because we know Mr. Baker's travel schedule and what he's doing, because I stay on the road almost full time, and he says we'll give him 7 to 10 days notice before he needs to come in and present himself. Okay, I'll pass that along to my client. What are the charges going to be? Well, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell? Well, I could tell you, but we're not, because as soon as I tell you, Mr. Baker will tweet it out.
As is your right, though.
Yeah, as is my right. Now, technically, he could fall back on the fact that until an actual judge or magistrate signs the arrest warrant, there are no charges.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so it's the end of January. What's the latest? That's it?
We haven't heard from them since.
Wow. I think this shows, you look at the Trump E. Jean Carroll case, and there's no justice system. It is weaponization of. It's remarkable to me. Trump gets accused by some crackpot old woman of a story that's based off of that bears striking resemblance to Law and Order SVU, denies it, and the denial is defamation.
Yeah.
Then he gets accused of fraud in New York. The judge issues a summary judgment without hearing any evidence and says, doesn't matter, Trump did it. Now in the trial to determine the amount of damages and whether or not he falsified business records, all the witnesses are like, oh no, Trump was doing business on the level. It's totally fine. Doesn't matter. We've already said. So what we have here, I think it's proof of they will do whatever they can get away with. And with you're on the line. You're not you're not Ben Shapiro.
No.
You don't have millions of followers, but you're not nobody. You work in media, and a lot of people are paying attention to your story. If you were like so many of the other J6ers who bumbled about confused, like I'm not talking about the rioters. I'm talking about the woman I met who said she showed up an hour after the riot, doors were open, there were no barricades, and she walked around confused and went home. 18-month sentence.
Yeah.
She does not have the platform you have as a journalist. And so now you've put them in this position where they're like, we got to get him, but oh man, he's too loud.
This past Thursday, myself and 4 of my attorneys in Dallas, in Dealey Plaza, we did a press conference. Interesting.
Yeah,
choice
I was
of
going to say,
location.
good location.
Chosen
You
by
stand
one of,
on the little box in the middle of the street? Or
well,
you stand farther
I
back?
made sure I took photos of the X in the street. But the point being is that we did a press conference there, and I actually addressed the point that you were making right there. And I said that exact thing. Unfortunately, there were so many that had come before me already. And I'm talking specifically about other independent journalists who have been jacked up by this system, and they did not have the coverage of me. They didn't have 4, great attorneys standing behind them. They didn't have the power, the bullhorn of the Blaze behind them at the time. And they didn't have the reach. So they were completely overwhelmed by that. Most of them having to use court-appointed lawyers to defend them that were probably of a leftist bent to begin with, didn't really care about their case. I know of individuals that have been jammed into what they call these stipulated bench trials. They don't even know what the client doesn't even know what that is. What is that? And they try to explain to them that it's a lot simpler, it's easier, it's going to cost you a lot less money. Well, basically, you're just walking in and pleading guilty without the opportunity to present your case or present any exculpatory or diminishing, something that might diminish your charges or diminish your sentencing, that sort of thing. But specifically to the independent journalists that have been caught up in this thing, I've watched trials. This is a great example. A young guy. Stephen Horn, also from Raleigh, North Carolina. We never knew each other before the January 6th thing. But what ended up happening to him is this he was 22 years old on January 6th, but he had a history of doing journalism since he was 16, including applying for and acquiring press passes for various events that he had covered. So when he goes up to cover that event, he actually tried to acquire a pass. He actually contacted Metropolitan PD. They wouldn't issue him one. He went anyway. He had been covering riots and the 20 riots in Raleigh, so he installed inside of his bicycle helmet a hidden camera so he didn't look like press. He didn't wear press anywhere, and so that he could blend into the crowd. So he gets arrested. He gets the 4 basic misdemeanor charges. He decides he's going to do a jury trial, right? So in the process of putting all this together in D.C., yeah, I mean, brave kid. He's going, and I'll tell you exactly why he decided to do that. There's another reporter by the name of Luke Mogelson who submitted his story to the New Yorker. He captured the famous video of the QAnon shaman inside the Senate chamber, chanting, praying, all of that. So Luke and another journalist by the name of J.D. Rivera from Pensacola, they basically paralleled each other through the building, took the same thing. J.D. ended up getting 8 months in prison.
Wow.
Luke, of course, didn't, because when Luke submitted his story to the New Yorker, the title of his story was Among the Insurrectionists. Yep. So he had his get out of jail free card already,
Yep. He said insurrection.
Right. So, but back to Stephen Horn. So Stephen Horn says, well, look, I'm going to go declare my innocence in front of a jury. And so they file a motion for selective prosecution in his case, his attorneys do. And the judge, a Trump-appointed judge by the name of Kelly, he would not allow the jury to see those press badges.
What?
That's
Why?
correct.
How?
Because.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is disgusting.
He might tweet it
That's
out.
disgusting.
So he would not allow that jury to see these. Now, I went up to D.C. to cover that trial. I was there for every minute of Stephen Horn's trial. And so I finally reached a level of frustration one day. And, I ran out into the hallway to where the attorney's room was and knocked on the door. And then one of them answered the door. And I said, you have to present blah, 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 blah. And he said, we can't. What do you mean? What do you mean you can't? It's the truth about his life, about his career, about his desire since he was a kid to be a journalist. We can't talk about it. We're under orders. We can't bring that up. And so what they did is the U.S. attorneys denigrated that kid. They absolutely, completely made any insinuation that he was there for any other reason other than to participate in the riot. It was completely slammed, and they could not just even show that jury. But, these were the press badges he acquired since he was 16. How?
What did he get?
This was a miracle. His sentencing was the day after Ray Epps' sentencing.
Oh, no
And
way.
that Ray Epps sentencing sent shock waves
Yeah.
through
Oh,
the
I just got
courts.
chills hearing that.
Yes.
Wow.
That was
Because he got off
crazy.
so easy with the
No
slap
jail
on the
time,
wrist.
right?
Wow.
So Horn only got a year probation and a $2,000 fine.
Still too much.
Still
But
too much.
thank God.
And if it had been before Epps, very likely it would have been jail time.
Because and now before Epps was the guy I mentioned from Pensacola, J.D. Rivera. He was actually the first person from the Panhandle of Florida to be caught up in the dragnet early January of 21, and he was the first one arrested in that part of the country. And he was actually contracted by a television station from Mobile. He shows up at January 6th with his big gear, his big expensive, shoulder mounted camera,
Right.
and he's going through there and he went through the same broken window that Luke Mogelson,
Wow.
New Yorker, submitted his story to. They both went through the same broken window. Luke Mogelson had his iPhone. Luke Mogelson said, yes, I used my phone as a reporter's notebook. And JD had his expensive gear. So when he gets home And the station is all excited when he's driving home on the 7th. They're calling him, you got all this footage. It's incredible. We can't wait to see it. Can't wait to get it. And then when he gets home, he doesn't hear from them at all. A few days later, over 20 agents show up at his doorstep. Red dots on his wife, his kids, his family. You know what JD's crime was? He never chanted. He never said USA, USA. He never, stopped the steal or any chant whatsoever. He wasn't wearing all the Trump paraphernalia, that sort of thing. His crime is he had been and had covered and had been active in the Hispanic or Latinos for Trump movement prior to that.
Wow.
So he goes to a bench trial. So he was smart enough not to, to risk a jury, but the judge in his case convicted him. And when he was sentenced, he was given 8 months in prison. He spent his first 2 months in solitary confinement. When he gets out of solitary and he gets into the general population of this medium security prison in Georgia, the other prisoners thought he was, he was some sort of spy or plant or whatever because
his story's fake.
It had to be fake because misdemeanor defendants are not sent to this prison. So they're all looking at him like going, no, hey, we're the pros. This is what we do for a living. We go to prison. Mm-hmm. We commit real crimes. Misdemeanor defendants do not come to this prison. He said, no.
This is so infuriating.
Wow.
I feel like you've seen the face of the military-industrial complex in terms of how they've grown out into the media. And these people are like the engineers of the false reality where like you can tell that story if you use the right words, like we're talking about the headlines earlier. Yeah. But if you tell it like this, we're going to throw you in jail.
Was Judge Kelly, was he the one who also acquitted that guy on for trespassing because the cop waved him in? Was that Kelly?
No, that wasn't Kelly. I forget which judge that was, but Kelly was also the guy over the Proud Boys trial.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.